In the last hour, the Science Secretary, Peter Kyle, has said Treasury Minister Tulip Siddiq did the right thing by referring herself for an investigation over corruption allegations and hinted that she could lose her job if found liable. He also confirmed that he's not aware that the Home Office is monitoring Elon Musk's post for extremist content, following reports this week. There's plenty more on the economy in the next hour. In a moment, we'll hear from the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride. We'll then get the business view from the head of the British Chambers of Commerce, Siobhan Haviland. And with some drawing comparisons with the 70s Labour government's own economic turbulence, we'll be joined by Jim Callaghan's Foreign Secretary, Lord David Owen. Right, let's get cracking with the opposition. Earlier, I spoke to the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride. Mel Stride, the Cabinet Minister, Peter Kyle, said to me this morning that Tulip Siddiq has done exactly the right thing in referring herself to the Prime Minister's ethics advisor. Do you think that he's right?
So I think that was inevitable that she would have to do that. But what is not right is that the Prime Minister is not moving her out of that position and getting her to step down, because she is the anti-corruption minister. She has serious charges laid against her now, or serious accusations that around corruption. And it's going to be really impossible for her to do that job under current circumstances, so she should step down, and the Prime Minister needs to get a grip of that.
Is that really fair? What happened to innocent until proven guilty?
Well, there are circumstances, I think, where you are in a situation where you cannot actually do your job effectively. Now, look, the Chancellor has gone over to China, and we may come and talk about that in a moment. Tulip Siddiq, my understanding was that she was due to be joining her. Now, she hasn't, and I would imagine joining the dots, that's because of the circumstances surrounding her at the moment. So at the moment, she's not in a position to be able to properly carry out her role in government, and the Prime Minister needs to get a grip and to move her on.
Right, well, let's talk about that trip to China. You've been saying Rachel Reeves shouldn't have gone. Do you seriously believe that if Rachel Reeves hadn't gone to China, it would have made the slightest bit of difference to the markets?
Well, the markets move fairly quickly, and sentiment and confidence is at the heart of the approach that a good Chancellor should take. Now, if you absent yourself and go halfway around the world when bond yields are rocketing up, particularly in this country, with very serious consequences, then you need to be at your station reassuring those markets. And I'm afraid it's rather tone deaf to not have got that in the first place. Now, Trevor, let me just flesh this out, if I may, just very quickly, because this has real consequences for real people. The fact that we are now paying about £12 billion a year more on servicing our national debt as a result of these market moves has real implications for people up and down the country. And that is money that is just simply going down the drain. It is not there to spend, for example, on our public services.
I want to come to the substance of it, but you're making a big deal of where Rachel Reeves is physically. I don't know if you heard about this magic. It's called Zoom, phone, email. I mean, it doesn't matter these days where she is. She can take decisions and she can tell the markets whatever she wants to do. Was that really a substantial thing for the opposition to talk about?
Look, where she goes and what she does is about how she communicates to the markets. And what she needs to do is to reassure and show very clearly what her priorities are.
She tried to do it from Shanghai.
No, I'm sorry, a quick clip from halfway around the world, etc., with a different time zone is not the way that you reassure markets. We've seen in a matter of a short number of days now, yields on bonds rocket up, the cost of servicing our national debt go up. That $12 billion could employ 300,000 nurses. It could pay for all our prisons and judges in the UK for a year. Right. It could pay the pensioners who have had their winter fuel payment taken away from them. It could pay that for 8.5 years.
All right.
Okay, that's the size of the problem that she's created, and she should be here to reassure markets.
All right. Well, look, let's talk about the contribution that you might make to a patriotic response to the market. You might have perhaps helped to calm the markets by acknowledging that some of this is your party's fault. Nobody has to buy into a $22 billion black hole business to accept that it was Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's budget that first tanked the markets.
So you're going back a while now.
Yeah, I had things. It took you 2 years to recover.
Trevor, I had things as the chair of the Treasury Select Committee to say about that particular period. But let's be very clear about the inheritance that this government received from us. We had the fastest growing economy in the G7. We had near record levels of employment. We had near record low levels of unemployment. We had seen real wages growing every month for 13 consecutive months. And we had brought successfully inflation down from its peak at the end of 22 down to bang on target at 2% on the day of the general election. So that was the inheritance.
Just about.
What they have now done is spent and taxed and borrowed to an extent that they have destroyed growth. Growth in our country.
Would it not help to get the international markets on side if they thought that our political establishments, both sides of the aisle, were being a bit sensible about this, and your part would be to acknowledge that mistakes were made?
So, as I say, I had a number of things. I'm on the public record very clearly. At the time of that mini-budget, I was chair of the Treasury Select Committee, and I was very clear on my opinions, and they have not changed. One of the reasons, actually,
but
Trevor,
no apology,
possibly why I'm sitting here now is that very point, is that my party has almost exclusively, almost, but not always, but almost exclusively been the party of fiscal responsibility. That is in the DNA of Conservatives. We believe in sound money.
Okay.
And I and Kemi and our team are now going to go out over the coming months and years and put beyond all doubt that we are the party of fiscal responsibility. And part of that is challenging this government, who are back to the old days of socialism, where you think you can spend your way into a better world. And we are discovering that you can't.
I know being Shadow Chancellor obviously doesn't mean being able to say you're sorry, but let's just ask about this week's business. Did Liz Truss consult you or Kemi before she sent a legal letter to the Prime Minister calling on him to cease and desist from accusing her of crashing the economy? And to be honest, was it helpful?
So I was certainly not consulted. I can't speak for anybody else. Look, this is a matter for Liz. I can't really comment. I haven't even seen the letter, so I don't know exactly what she said. But, you know, I leave that to her. OK. Let's talk about China. Yeah.
Party's not exactly united on your body language. On the balance between principle, focusing on human rights and China's intervention in other parts of the world, and on the other hand, striking a trading relationship which is advantageous to us. Where do you stand? Do you think that this government's getting it right, or are they giving China too much credibility?
Well, they're getting it wrong, and let me explain why. So we know, of course, that China is the world's second largest economy. It's our fourth largest single trading partner, and they're very important to us internationally, where we have to cooperate on things such as climate change, for example. However, we have to be wide-eyed and realistic about this. They are also a competitor in ways that are unsatisfactory, often in the way in which they trade, the theft of intellectual property, their human rights record, their support economically for Russia around Ukraine, the threats to Taiwan and so on. Sure. And what we therefore have to have is the right balance of approach. Now, what we are absolutely united on is the sight of our Chancellor of the Exchequer scampering off to China, cap in hand, at a time that the UK economy is in significant distress, does not get that balance or that approach right.
Is this doesn't sound very pragmatic conservatism. That sounds rather ideological.
No, I'm a pragmatist, of course.
That's what I thought.
Just set it out. Well, I've just set it out in those terms. No, I have set it out exactly in those terms. So it's not black or white. You have to have both sides. They are the largest economy, the second largest economy in the world. They're our fourth largest trading partner. They matter to us, but that doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye and at a moment of need in the UK economy, scamper off, cap in hand to the Chinese with all the optics that goes around that. I don't think that was the right decision.
You are going to have a test quite soon, aren't you? Sooner or later, President Trump's going to ask us to decide where we stand, because he will almost certainly impose fresh tariffs on China, and he will expect allies to follow. Should we?
Well, that's a hypothetical question. We don't know what.
Well, it's not that hypothetical. He's not stopped banging on about it.
Well, of course, we're not in government. What we need to have is a positive relationship with the Trump regime, something that this government, I have to say, has had a fairly checkered record on.
And the Trump regime interpretation of a positive relationship is you agree with us on China.
And what we do, you mentioned tariffs, what we do on the tariff point is what the government should be doing is forging a good, positive working relationship with the new administration, not falling out with them as they have been to date, and therefore pressing the case for not having these tariffs. Because at the end of the day, Trevor, these tariffs are going to lead to higher inflation, higher interest rates, slow down in the world economy. It's not going to be good for anybody. But that is an argument that you have to have a relationship with the administration in order to be able to make. And at the moment, this government is completely failing that test.
Yeah, but you just said that we might not have such a warm relationship with China. It's a bit confusing. But anyway, let's just...
No, I said we need to have a balanced relationship with China.
All right.
A balanced relationship.
Just very quickly on America, in a word, is Peter Mandelson the right person to deliver that relationship?
Well, it's got off to a pretty sticky start. I think I'll probably leave it at that.
OK, Mel Stride, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Trevor.